Hi, the other day I posted on Facebook a completed baby huggy, snuggy, whatever you want to call it, a comfort blanket. And this is in the rag style quilting technique, which is probably the easiest quilting technique there is out there. But I did have several people ask me questions about it. Now you're going to see on here this, I don't know if you'd want to consider this the right side or the wrong side. I guess it doesn't really matter. But what you need to do is when you sew your pieces together, you make sure that all your raw edges are on one side, and then this is what the back would look like. And I'm going to show you how I do it. Okay, first of all, you need a few supplies. You're going to need a rotary cutter. You're going to need a long ruler, a cutting mat. Mine measures 23 by 23 inches. You're going to want it to be quite long. You're going to need your fabric, which I just picked up some of the stuff at Walmart. It was relatively cheap. I'm not exactly sure what kind of material it is. I don't know if you consider it a muslin, but it's got, I don't know, to touch it, it feels like it's got more of a grainy texture. So what you need to do is you lay it out on your cutting board, get rid of your raw edges. You want to measure it nice and straight. And then you just take your rotary cutter and you take off that raw edge. And then you're going to want to cut these after that into, I'm using 10-inch strips. So all you'd have to do is put your ruler up here on the 10 mark and on the 13 mark and just cut them into 10-inch strips. And then what you're left over is with something like this. These are the strips cut into 10 inches. Then you do the same thing again. You line up your raw edges on the edge of your cutting board and get rid of the raw edge, and then cut these into 10-inch blocks. And then what you're left over is with something that looks like this. What then you need to get some batting, which is a filler for quilting, and I get the thin stuff. I don't like it, my quilt block's really thick. And so no matter what size your block is, whether it's going to be 8 inches or 10 inches or 12 inches, you make your center batting 2 inches smaller. So this is 10 inches, this is 8 inches. And what you do, they call it putting into making a little quilt block sandwich. Now when you open up, excuse me, your sections here, let's see if I can get one. You keep your right sides facing out. Normally with quilting you put your right sides together, but when you're making a quilt sandwich like this, you need to keep your right sides facing out. And all you do is you put your little sandwich in there and try to even it out as best you can. With this quilt, you don't have to be super exact with anything because you're going to be cutting all your exposed seams anyway. And then you just line these up and then you sew an X from point to point. That's all you have to do. And then when you get several of these put together, you just take your little quilt block sandwiches like this, right sides facing this time, and then line them up. And all you have to do is sew an inch to a 3/4, or I usually use a 3/4 inch seam allowance. And then you just sew all your blocks together, making sure that all your raw edges are facing in the same direction, like this, right here. And then when you have them all sewn together, you're gonna, I made a really, really small one here, but the one I'm making right here is gonna be a 70 block. It's gonna be 7 blocks over and 10 blocks down. What then you have to do is you have to sew. If you can see here, I don't know if you can see those stitches. What you need to do is go around the whole blanket and seal that up. And then all you have to do is take some, they do have rugging shears out there specifically made for this. They have a really, really short scissor head, and they open automatically so it's less stress on your hand. And all you do is you snip in close to the seam line, but not into it, or then your blanket is just going to fall apart. Trust me, the very first one I made for Lauren, I used beautiful flannels that were really hugely expensive, and I snipped into all the seams, and the darn thing got exposed, and he still likes it. He doesn't really use it anymore. Now, the recommended fabric to use is flannel. Now, these are baby flannels. Now, but I also like using these muslins, plaids, or whatever you want to call it. But I also understand you can use cotton fabric. I've never made one with cotton fabric, so I can't tell you how they look. I'm sure you can do some research. I will show you guys a picture of this finished product. I should have it done within a, I don't know, a couple days. But basically, your basic things that you need is some fabric. You can use cheap because, like I said, this is gonna be an heirloom quilt. This is gonna be something that you drag around. This is something that your cats are gonna lay on, your grandkids are gonna play with. So the cheaper the fabric, I guess, is better. I wouldn't, again, go out and spend $10 a yard for fabric to make a rag quilt. That's what I would use more for, like a granny square or a 9-patch. If anybody has any questions, just ask me, let me know. I hope I didn't confuse anybody because this is literally the easiest. All you have to do, you don't even have to worry about sewing in a straight line. You can see my lines aren't straight here, but nobody's going to see them and nobody's going to really care. All you got to do is be able to sew an X and use a rotary cutter. And that's all you got to do. Bye.